All right, y'all, after some time, I like to do this at least every single year around the anniversary, but we are finally, a very anticipated video, we are going to be ranking the top 10 characters in Nikke. This is the list I have right here. I do want to see if I can kind of make it bigger without it covering any numbers. I'll just do it like this so you guys can see the characters, but this is the list right here under my webcam or whatever. We have Litter, Rappy, Red Hood, Little Mermaid, Crown, Nayuta, Helm, Scarlet Black Shadow, Vesti, D, Killer Wife, Rouge, Bunny Aid, or I guess Maid Aid. I think that's Bunny Aid, right? Master and Anchor, of course, the maid versions, Cinderella, Bunny Milk, Modernia, Scarlet, Summer Dorothy and regular Dorothy, the tactical upgrade Emma and tactical upgrade Yunhua, Summer Anise, Winter, Ludmilla, the Bunny Girls, Blanca Noir, basically, Alice, and Librelio. I think if any characters in the game would be in the conversation for top 10, it would be these characters. Not every single character here. I just obviously, like the last year and the year before, like some of these characters were, you know, in the top 10 and now they might not even make it, right? I think I'm gonna have like an honorable mention thing, right? I think I'm gonna have an honorable mention thing and then maybe like rank that from like the 11 to 15 maybe. Or I'll just say honorable mentions, right? Characters that could have made the top 10. But this is going to be my top 10, right? I'm going based off logic. I'm going overall everything. So what does that mean, right? When I say, okay, well, Zxous, when you say overall, what does that mean? And I want to make this very clear because a lot of people don't actually listen to this part of the video. They just skip to the end. When I say overall, I'm ranking them as a full character. I'm right. Them in their best situations, them in content. So PvP, story, solo raid, union raid, anonymous interception. Like how is the character as an overall character? How do they work in the game with other teams or other Nikkes and stuff like that? That's how I'm ranking this, right? And I'm gonna try to give my best top 10 tier list right here for you guys because there's a lot of characters. There's absolutely a lot of characters in this game. So I'm gonna start from probably 1 and make my way down to 10 because I don't really know how I'm gonna rank it like 10, 9. It's easier to go from 1 down to 10 rather than 10 up to 1. So obviously I think till this day, out of every single character that came out after sitting down and thinking about it, I have Rappy at 1. I know a lot of people just like they still want to put Crown up there or Little Mermaid up there or even Nayuta up there. You can do that obviously, but I think Rappy is easily the best character in the game. She is way too powerful whether you're using her as a burst 1 or a burst 3. Not only that, she is the only character in the game that is type advantage against 2 different types, right? So by pulling this character, you're solving like 4 issues just by having her. She becomes a burst 1 character if you don't have another burst 1 on your team, and with that she is giving an attack damage buff to your team and a cool down reduction of 7 seconds. That's the highest in the game right now, and she has that as well, right? And then when you're using her burst 3, she just becomes a very powerful DPS, literally top 3 strongest DPSs in the game. It could argue second, you can argue 2 or 3 for the top 3. I mean, I just did my DPS video with proof of like where she would rank in that, right? And again, you could argue her being number 2, you can argue her being number 3. Either way, as her burst 3, she becomes a top 3 DPS, and as a burst 1, she becomes a top 3 burst 1 character in the game. I think this character having those 2 things, and again, the elemental thing being type advantage against, I believe she's type advantage against wind and also electric, because she becomes like an iron type character in that sense, right? I think she has to be 1. At 2, after sitting down and thinking about it, it's so hard for me because it's between Crown and Little Mermaid. I think they're both really, really good, right? I think it could be like you could have either or, but I think I'd have to give it to Little Mermaid. I use Little Mermaid so much, right? Like I was really just sitting down like, okay, how do I want to do this one? Is it Crown or is it Little Mermaid? I think I'm going to give it to Little Mermaid because Little Mermaid doesn't necessarily need anybody, right? And I'm going to explain that more when I get down to Crown, but Little Mermaid is like the perfect character of all around character in the game. I would actually have Little Mermaid as the definitive best character in the game if Rappy wasn't a broken burst 1 and a broken burst 3 with being type advantage against 2 different types. This Little Mermaid character has cooldown reduction, fill burst gauge, attack damage buffs, damage taken increased to the boss permanently, and then she does insane damage all as a burst 1 supporter. This character is the high, and not only that, the greatest thing that this Little Mermaid character has is focus fire, which allows every single person on your team to attack wherever she wants you to attack. The only way you're getting that is in a full burst, and even still in a full burst, it's not activated 100% of the time. It could be random, right? Sometimes in a full burst, other enemies can attack wherever they want. With Little Mermaid, she helps your team attack wherever they need to attack, and that's so good because let's say you want to just blitz the boss and you don't want to deal with enemies, you could do that with Little Mermaid, right? And I have used that multiple times where basically the enemies are in my, like the mobs are in my way and they're about to kill me, but I'm so close to killing the boss. By click on Little Mermaid, I have everybody go for the boss dies instantly, because once the boss dies, the minion dies as well. So I easily have Little Mermaid at 2 just for that, right? At 3, I have Crown. Now, if you're wondering, okay, well, Zxous, Crown is a fantastic support. Why don't you have her over Little Mermaid? I think I'm only going to put her in 3 and not 2 is because she does need to be paired up with a specific type of healer. We have multiple healers in this game. I want to say we have like, what, 3 or 4 different types of healers in this game. And only one type of healer works with her, right? And that's the healer that actually just heals you, not like a healer that puts a buff on you and heals you over time, or a healer like Nikke that has the equal share or anything like that, right? You need to have her paired up with a healer that just heals, right? And also does that within the time range of her skill too, right? Because my whole thing is, I've tested this as well on live stream, if you guys were there in that live stream, but if you run Crown without a dedicated healer to keep her royal attire up 100% of the time, her buffs are exactly the same as Nikke's, or not necessarily, but Nikke's damage that she does makes up for the damage that, or the damage increase that Crown is giving to the rest of the team if you do not have her with a dedicated healer. So I think because I do need to have that dedicated healer, and realistically there's not that many options for like a good decent dedicated healer, there's only 2. There's Naga and Helm, I would say, right? Because there's not a dedicated one, I think that's why I have her at 3 overall. At 4, I have Nikke. This is the anniversary pilgrim right now. Nikke, literally, I think, again, it's more of just like, she's so good. I think there are some things that this character could have had to make her like generally better than Crown, which is simply the buffs that she gives herself when she's fully stacked up on her hit rate stacking buff or whatever. They should have made that go to all allies. I think if they had done that, then she easily would have been better than Crown, because not only would she be hitting as hard as burst 3 attacker pilgrims, but she would have been supporting as like good as like Crown is supporting the team as well, right? I think just in a general sense, if we're talking all content and stuff like that, technically this character has Crown beat in PvP, I would say, but everything else, Crown and her supporting capabilities, again, it is a team-based game, so even though like she does need to be paired up with a healer, if you're running Crown, you're probably running her with that healer if you do have them. You're just getting a big damaging buff from Crown, and even Nikke's damage, even though she hits very, very, very hard, it's not enough to replace Crown. So I have her at 4 for that reason. Now this is where it gets a bit tricky, because at 5, I don't know who I have, because it's like, what am I considering? Am I talking about overall or what? I think at 5, I have Cinderella. I think honestly, I think I have Cinderella at 5. Genuinely, I think Cinderella is like the best DPS in this game, and that is the character that is going to be able to get you through almost all the content in the game. She's not the only one. There's a lot of characters that can get you through the entire game, but I do feel like Cinderella and her damaging mechanic, just the way she works, she's so strong. She's the only DPS in the game to scale off of, well, She's not the only one, right? Her and Winter Maiden are the only two DPSs to scale off of final max HP, but this Cinderella's percentages are insane. She hits up to 10 times, and then, what is it? She deals like 1,300% for every individual hit, right? That's a bit crazy. That's like a 10,000. That's a lot of damage that she's doing. Not to mention if she's like, whatever her stat count is for her HP buff that she gives herself, up to 12 stacks, that can be multiplied by the 28%. Is it 20%? 20%, I believe, on her burst skill. Let me see. Yeah, as you guys see right here, it's 28% final attack as additional damage, and that mirrors the stat count of Beautiful. Her stat count of Beautiful can go up to 12. So 28 times 12 if she's fully stacked up, not to mention 1,300% of final attack as damage that hits 10 times, is just insane to me. So yeah, for sure, I think this character is easily like the strongest character in the game. Well, when it comes to bosses and stuff like that, because when it comes to mobs, there's a character that does beat her there. I think because of that, I do have her there at 5. At 6, I know this might seem crazy, but I have to have Treasure Helm there. I would probably have Helm higher than her, right? Overall, maybe. I honestly, I wouldn't be too mad with this ranking right here, right? But I just don't see the top 5 being mainly supports. Well, I say mainly supports, but like, she's a sub DPS, and she could be a support or a DPS. And then even if she's a support, she's hitting as hard as some DPSs. She's a full-blown support, and she can hit very hard as well. So she's a kind of a sub DPS, but most people use Helm as the actual sub DPS, right? I just think Helm, I'm never using Helm unless I have her with 1 and 2. That's the honest to God truth. The only other reason why I would be using Helm is if I genuinely needed a character with really, really, really good healing. In PvP, that's a different story. Helm is a really good character in PvP, and I would generally use Helm in PvP, right? I do. But if we're talking about like just Helm as a solo character and stuff like that, overall, you're never going to use her unless you are using her with that monstrous trio, I feel like, right? Or again, if you do need somebody who has a really good heal, her burst skill is just it's a button that will just grant you basically infinite heals for 10 seconds, and it has come in clutch. There has been genuine times where I'm using Helm or I'm doing like a stage or whatever, and I just put on Helm just for the sole purpose of her being able to heal me when I use her burst skill. I think Helm, for the first ever character in the game to get a favorite item that makes her Pilgrim level, is just crazy. This character is one of a kind, for real. There's no other character like her, right? She works really well with Crown, who is the second best character or third best character in the game, and she works really well with Little Mermaid as well, because she also has Fill Burst Gauge. So now with Little Mermaid, who has Fill Burst Gauge and cooldown reduction, and Helm has that as well, that's really good synergy there. And then again, the healing to keep Royal Attire up 100% of the time with Crown, that's what makes Helm so special, and that's what kind of brings the monstrous trio team together, right? So Helm, I'm gonna have you at 6 realistically. I think at 7 I'm going to have to put Liberaelio. I think Liberaelio is the second best DPS in the game realistically. I think she's just like another level. She's genuinely just another level of insane when it comes to mob clearing, when it comes to regular bosses, boss with ads, PvP. This character is just an all-around beast, right? The only reason why I don't have her over Cinderella is because when it does come to bosses, which I feel like in Nikke matter more than mobs realistically, Cinderella takes that, right? But if it's bosses with ads, or again just tower or story, or again PvP, there's no question. Even Cinderella is really good in PvP, right? But like Liberaelio also has that in the bag as well. She has an instant nuke on her burst skill. She's way too powerful. She gives herself way too many buffs. Liberaelio is definitely up there, right? I feel like I want to do a bit more testing for like the next few months with Liberaelio versus Cinderella for me to like feel like to see who is better, because again, like I said, Cinderella is better than Liberaelio when it comes to bosses, like solo single enemy bosses, but then Liberaelio is better than Cinderella when it comes to anything that has more than one enemy. And that's just what's crazy to me, right? Because that would be any boss with ads, or any tower, or any lost sector, or any story, or any PvP, you know? There's so much more content where Liberaelio would be better than Cinderella in terms of just overall damage, right? because of her insane AoE. But that's why I say I want to try a few more months, because I generally am at a point in Nikke where I could see Cinderella be, or Liberalia slightly being better than Cinderella if I'm considering all those facts that I just said, right? This is where it starts to get a bit difficult, because Red Hood, Litter, Scarlet Black Shadow, even Rouge, right? These characters are, Dorothy isn't ranked, like all these characters are not ranked, and we have 8, 9, and 10. I think after all these characters, I would probably have to say Red Hood, right? It's gonna seem silly, right? I think Red Hood is still, even though she isn't like the best character in the game, I think Red Hood is still one of the most versatile characters you can get in Nikke. She is definitely still a staple for almost anything that has to do with an electric boss, right? Because of her piercing mechanic. And again, she's still the only character in the game that is a burst 1, 2, and 3 character and can actually use her burst 1, 2, and 3. When it comes to Rappy, you can only use her burst 1 or 3. You can't use both of them at the same time. When it comes to Red Hood, you can use her burst 1, 2, and 3 all in one sequence if you wanted to. And again, that does come in clutch when it is needed, because her burst 1 and her burst 2, let's say you never used it, right? It has a cooldown for the first time you use it. That's very helpful if like your burst 1 or 2 dies and then she instantly just refreshes the cooldown and it gives you your burst 3 again after using your burst 2 or burst 1 because your burst 1 or 2 died. I think genuinely Red Hood is a character that is going to be in the top 10 for a long time. I think she's a character that even by the 4th anniversary, we're talking a character that will probably by the 4th anniversary just get right under 10 and be right there at 11, or she will still stay in the top 10, right? What's really keeping her alive again is just one, having permanent pierce, and then being a really good burst 1 character and a really good burst 3 character. She's not the strongest burst 3, not even close to any of the strongest burst 3s in my opinion, and she's a really good burst 1 support, right? But again, it's really just a burst 1, 2, and 3 thing, and permanent pierce and how good she is as a burst 1 and how good she is as a burst 3. That's what's keeping her there at 8. I think at 9 I probably have Scarlet Black Shadow. I think when it comes to Scarlet Black Shadow, she's still very good, right? Obviously, she's a character who's been out for almost 2 years now. In January, she's going to be out for 2 years. And she's a character that really is just like a different breed when it comes to getting the job done. She's a really good AoE clear and stuff like that. And I know it might sound weird, like, oh, Scarlet better than Litter. And I think the reason why I always have Scarlet, or I'm going to have Scarlet over Litter and even Red Hood over Litter, is because it is still a team-based game where burst 3s have a lot more flexibility than burst 1s, if that makes sense, right? There are so many burst 1 options now where people don't even look Litter's way like that unless you're fighting content where you need more than 1 teams, right? If I'm using a burst 1, it's probably going to be either Little Mermaid herself or it's going to be Rappy, right? And then the only other time I'm using a burst 1 is probably if I'm using, like, you know, Emma and Yunwa. That's a combo I could use a lot as well. Or if I'm using Rouge for Cinderella specifically, or if I'm using D-Killer Wife for the fire team, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying Litter is a bad character at all, but I feel like when it comes to burst 1s, you don't have that many options, where when it comes to burst 3, you do, right? And that's why I'm going to put Scarlet Black Shadow there, because again, when it comes to bosses, PvP, mobs, anything, she is really, really good for every single thing in the game, only because she has distributed damage, right? So basically, if she's fighting 1 enemy, all the damage that she would do is going to that 1 enemy. She's fighting 10 enemies, all the damage she would do is still going to 10 enemies, but the damage, the overall like damage number is just being split. So for example, if she deals, let's say, 1,000,000, right? If it's 1 enemy, that 1 enemy is taking 1,000,000 damage. But if she's fighting 10 enemies, all the enemies together are taking a combined damage of 1,000,000. So if it's 10, then each individual enemy would take 100k. I think that's what puts her down below Liberalia. That's what puts her down behind Nayuta in damage. That's what puts her down Rappy in damage, and also Cinderella in damage. It's just that it's that simple thing where the more enemies she fights, the less damage she's doing to every individual enemy, where all these other characters kind of just clear them, right? So that's my opinion for Scarlet Black Shadow. And then I think at 10, it just has to go to Litter, right? She is still, again, one of the best burst 1 characters in the game. If we're talking about just general burst 1 characters in the game, even if we're not even counting Rappy, right? She would technically be the 2nd best burst 1 in the game. Little Mermaid just holds a lot of weight. And then again, Rappy, since you can use her as a burst 1, and even Red Hood, right? Red Hood is another character you can use as burst 1. These are characters that hold a lot of weight and value as a burst 1 character, right? I think when it comes to Litter, the only thing that's keeping her alive still till this day is her obviously her cover healing, right, that she has since the beginning of the game, and then cooldown reduction. I wouldn't even say her attack buff is keeping her alive anymore. Like, it's a big attack buff. It's 66% of just of attack. It's just a 66% attack buff, but it only lasts for 5 seconds, and I feel like in 2025, how Nikke is now, that's just not gonna cut it, right? That's just not gonna cut it unless you're using somebody like Liberalia or using somebody like Nayuta, who these characters are just doing AoEs regardless, right? You know, a lot of these other characters like Rappy, even like Helm, for example, right? These are characters who need their full 10 seconds to do crazy damage and are probably going to need a full 10-second buff to kind of get the job done, right? I think realistically, Litter only has fallen off. She hasn't fallen off, but I feel like Litter's only down there at 10 now because of characters like Rappy, because of characters like Little Mermaid. These are 2 characters that came out this year in 2025, and those 2 characters being where they are in 2025, even like Treasure Helm, right? She came out this year. Nayuta, she came out this year. Liberalia, she came out this year. Half of the list here came out this year, right? And these are the characters that I bumped Litter down to 10. She used to be in my top 3. Last year, if you guys go to look at my top 10 tier list last year, I think Litter was number 3. 5 characters came out this year, and because of how much the meta shifted, Litter came all the way down to 10. So there is that. But I think, yeah, this is what I would say the top 10 characters in the game are now. I would say these are the characters that can get you throughout, through the game and stuff like that. Obviously not Treasure Helm, because that's a late game character, but like overall, yeah, these are the 10 characters that could probably get you through the game, right? Obviously Rappy, Little Mermaid, all of them, right? I think for honorable mentions, the only characters I would put in honorable mentions are probably going to be obviously Alice, right? I think Alice, Vesti's really good for everything but bosses in this game. I think Summer Dorothy as well is another character that you could put in honorable mentions. I just would never have Summer Dorothy in my top 10, only because Summer Dorothy is a character who's only good against fire bosses, in my opinion, right? Fire enemies, realistically just fire bosses, right? I would never use Summer Dorothy unless I'm fighting a boss where she's type advantage, right? And that kind of goes the same thing for Alice. I personally would never use Alice unless I'm fighting a stage where she is, well, not even now, because Miranda's a thing, right? So my go-to for DPS when it comes to stages where fire characters are type advantage is Rappy and Miranda, because those are the hardest hitting fire characters in the game. I wouldn't say Alice is now either. When it comes to bosses, right? And then also the way you have to play her is just funky. Obviously, Mast and Anchor, I would say they're honorable mentions, but even them together, I wouldn't say are better than these characters up here in the top 10. And I think that's the only characters I would put. I would never put Rouge in the top 10. She's only good for, realistically, Cinderella, and that's not enough. DK the Wife, again, really decent character, a really good character. Her biggest thing is her cooldown reduction as a burst 1, but now with Rappy and Little Mermaid in the game, who both have that thing, she's not necessarily needed, right? Because that's all she really did have. I wouldn't say her attack buffs or her pierce buff, those were nothing great. They were only like 5-10%, nothing drastic. The only thing I was keeping the Killer Wife up there realistically was her cooldown reduction. Bunny Aid is definitely another one. Bunny Aid's a really good honorable mention. Like, she's a character who probably could have been up there as well. But her and Grave are the same thing, so I probably wouldn't have that, just because I wouldn't have Grave in my top 10, right? But she's a really good character. And then obviously the tactical upgrade, Emma and Yunwa, that pairing is really good as well, but like the biggest thing that they lack is cooldown reduction, so it's just not good. Milk, really strong character. She hits just as hard as Red Hood, if not harder, but that's all she has to offer, just damage, where again Red Hood burst 1, 2, and 3, godlike support, godlike DPS, all that stuff, right? But yeah, this is what I would say the top 10 of Nikke is, right? This is what I would say the top 10 of Nikke is. Rappy, Little Mermaid, Crown, Nayuta, Cinderella, favorite item Helm, Liberalia, Red Hood, Scarlet Black Shadow, and Litter. This is what I would say the top 10 characters are in the game. Now, if you guys agree, you guys agree. If you don't agree, then you don't agree. Either way, it is just my opinion, and just like stuff from genuinely testing them out for a few days since Liberalia's dropped. Like, I've been working on this for so long, testing all of them, seeing what I consider, who I put over who. this is what I think I have my top 10 as. So if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like. It's gonna be your boy Zxous, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. I'm out. Later, peace. And if you guys don't agree with this tier list and you guys feel like another character should have been in the top 10 or whatever, I feel like a lot of people are gonna watch this and then probably have all these characters in their top 10, probably just switch up the orders. Like, I think some people are probably gonna have Crown over Little Mermaid, which is perfectly fine. I'm not gonna disagree with that, right? I think Crown could go over Little Mermaid. Again, it's just my points and stuff like that I put, is why I put these characters here, right? But if you do want to tell me your top 10, by all means. Is this my top 10 or the top 10 in the game? I generally believe this is the top 10 characters in the game, not my top 10 personally. Right? If it was my top 10, Liberalia would be higher than Cinderella. Naruto would be higher than Crown. Right? I'm just being honest. Right? If it was my personal top 10, I believe this is the top 10 of the game. Right? I'm actually gonna take Dorothy out the honorable mention. I think these 4 are the honorable mention characters. I don't think anybody else here. Maybe you. Right? But yeah. You guys let me know what you think. It's your boy Zxous. I love all you guys. I'm out. Peace.